Glad you all can make it here, and hopefully you've already gotten a plate of food, and feel free to get up and get more as you need to, or beverages to the side. We're glad that you're here today. We're very excited. We've been busy over the last couple of days working with our consulting group, Arnett Muldrow and Associates, as they meet with different stakeholders, different residents, different business owners to try to create a brand for the West Side and the neighborhoods within the West Side. And so we're excited today to sort of get a sneak peek, or a peek, I guess, finally, the big reveal, right, if you will, of what they've come up with. And I really haven't seen it either, so it's just be a surprise to me as well. But just let me run through some sort of business. Hopefully many of you know that we've been doing a lot of planning and planning-related activities in the city as part of our Connections for Sustainability project. It's been a grant-funded project. It's really 3 years now. We've been working. We've done a lot of different plans in the community, including a comprehensive plan for the west side of the city. And it was really from that west side comprehensive plan that we realized we needed to start to look at the west side and the neighborhoods within it and see what we could do to strengthen the neighborhood's identity and also create a way that we can sort of make this area marketable to encourage things like grocery stores or other economic development components. And that's what we hope the brand will help us do today. And so if you didn't receive already our West Side Connection, it's our quarterly newspaper that we've been using throughout the posting throughout the neighborhood. We have those at the front desk. Be sure to pick it up. It'll tell you a little bit more about some of the background on branding and some other information, including our website, where you can take a look at some of the other stuff that we have done over the last few years. And then I always like to tell everyone about our comment cards. Since we do so many public meetings, we do like to check to see how we do. And we like to hear from you on what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. And so be sure to fill it out. It's very quick. And then we also ask that if you leave today and there's something that you didn't get to mention but that you thought of on the way out, or something you didn't get a chance to say, or a question that you didn't get a chance to ask, you can write that on this card, and we do look at these. And whether we respond to or just react to, whether it's an idea for a new topic that we should look at, those sort of things, we do look at those. So, again, thank you all for coming here. We're very fortunate that we were able to work with a really nationally recognized consulting firm, nationally recognized for their community branding abilities. And they are local, Arnett Muldrow and Associates, but again, they do this around the country. And so with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ben Muldrow, who will tell you a little bit about what they've been up to and where they're at with this branding.
Fantastic. Thanks, Wayne. How y'all doing? Good. Well, thank you, first of all, for coming out on Friday afternoon. I really appreciate it. Being able to meet with you all, and this is a very, very interesting process. As Wayne mentioned, our company is located here. I no longer live in Greenville, though. I run our Mid-Atlantic office, which is based out of Delaware, which is a absolutely interesting place to live, I'll say. It makes me very much miss Greenville. And while I lived in Greenville, the last house I owned was right over on Pendleton Road. So even though I was just outside the city, I very much considered the west side my home. And so I'm excited to be able to share you a little bit about what we've been able to do over the past couple of days. We had a great meeting on Wednesday night, excuse me. We were right here on Wednesday. And had about 30 or so people that came out, and we had a really interesting discussion. And I think one of the first things that I said that night was, as we go through this process, one of our main goals is being able to solidify the identities of these individual neighborhoods that we're working with. West Greenville, West End, and Southern Side. And we absolutely understand that this identity of West Side, that was kind of something that was invented. It was invented strategically so that we could connect the three of these communities. Y'all are active today. It's like everybody wants us right at lunch. Don't they know we're on break? We need to be able to leverage the three communities together but we need to also be able to preserve the individuality of it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about the West Side identity from kind of an overarching take, and then we're going to move into, we've got some stuff for the individual neighborhoods, and then into some individual events that go on, and then just kind of show you how the message comes together. Now, this is a very unique project for us because it exists in between a lot of identities that have already existed. So we had to understand that as we created this, we wanted to do something that gave you the opportunity to have a unique personality that allowed you to connect these dots while also giving you the flexibility to be able to have kind of some individuality as we go through that. Growth is a scary thing. And many, many times when you call a place home, there becomes this hazy world around growth. And people love to throw the word progress out, and it's like, well, yeah, I know what progress means. Progress means that I might not be able to live here anymore because I might not be able to afford it. I think one of the big overarching goals here is to help solidify the individuality of these neighborhoods and help reinforce the value that the diversity that the West Side brings to Greenville. That is a huge value when we look at Greenville as a whole. You all offer the city of Greenville a collection of experiences and cultures that can't be seen anywhere else. We had a great meeting yesterday morning with some students from Legacy School. And we were talking a little bit about diversity, and you know, they made the same mistake that we often do. And they broke it down into 3 categories. We got white students, we got black students, and we've got Hispanic students. And it's like, really? Hispanic? How does that work? Where are they from? They're from everywhere from Puerto Rico to Chile. And, you know, we cannot allow the lazy kind of groupings to dilute the diversity that actually exists in the West Side of Greenville. So one of the things that we do as we go through this process is we like to use graphic tools to help identify the identity. And the first thing that we do is we look at typefaces. And we selected a very interesting typeface here. We wanted something that was bold, something that was easy to read. And to be honest with you, we even had to think through the name, West Side. We had to say, well, does it make sense? We don't want to overthink it. We don't want to go and create a whole new identity that makes no sense whatsoever. But when we have West End, West Greenville, and Southern Side, West Side seemed relatively non-confrontational. I think that's the best way to say it. I mean, it almost simply gives us more of a directional reference, and that's fine. Now, what we did with the typeface, we originally decided we want it to be West Side, and we always want West Side to be 2 words. We don't want it to be blended in together. I see that over and over again with Southern Side stuff. I see sometimes Southern Side is 1 word, and sometimes Southern Side is 2 words. So being able to figure out what the approach is and be consistent with that. I picked a typeface called Festivo. I've never used this typeface before. In fact, I never knew it existed. One of the reasons that I picked it is the typeface itself has so many different variations. It has different ways that the same typeface can be displayed. So this is what Festivo looks like. You can see it's a nice, bold typeface, but it gives us all these different options, whether it's got different shadows. This is called a dot shadow. But then even when we get into hand-drawn textures like this, and different people can look at these textures and they can feel different things. They can make different kind of connections to where that might come from. So we really, really liked the diversity that the typeface brought us, because what it allowed us to do is, as we started to look at brand extension, it allows us the opportunity to give a lot of different looks while keeping that same typeface. Now, the colors were something that were a very easy decision for us. Because of what West Side is, we simply landed on a pre-existing color palette. And this pre-existing color palette is a color palette that's been deployed by the city, but then it's also been adopted in smaller levels. They've recently gone through and kind of approved a rebranding of the village of West Greenville. And although the village branding system uses typefaces that diverge from what the city uses, the colors that they use very much amplify that. Well, why is that important? Because the signage that the city is going to invest in is going to come from this palette. The things that are city initiatives are going to be based out of this. But we also know that with this, and these colors are never good on a projector screen, but these are two, this is a dark green and a light green. We know that those are the predominant colors that the city really uses. So we started to lean this way. So that we're from the same palette, but we're leaning on a different set of colors. Now then the next thing that we did was we created a brand statement. Pete, you want to read it? You want me to? Okay. The brand statement this is really kind of our first swipe at this. It's our opportunity to take the things that we heard said in all of our stakeholder meetings and bring it together into a statement that helps people see how we're all tied together. So I'm going to read it for you. We are Westside Greenville. We are Greenville's backbone. Nestled between our downtown and the Textile Crescent, we are three neighborhoods that have worked hard to make our city stand tall. We are Southern Side. Named for our railroad heritage, we were the porters, masons, maids, and educators who kept the city running. We are West Greenville, a diverse neighborhood where family and faith reside at the forefront of life. We are the West End, a close-knit community and the lifeblood of downtown. We are Greenville's heart. We have always been a diverse, welcoming place where people of all colors and creeds and incomes call home. We are neighbors and educators and leaders. Front porch conversations and family reunions, churches and community centers. We find our strength in helping brothers and sisters in need, in perseverance and preservation, in education and recreation, in our rich history and bright future. We are Greenville's future. We are a place of positive energy, of revitalized streets and buildings and houses. Our neighborhoods and historic commercial districts are awakening after years of slumber. We are the village of West Greenville, the vibrant West End, the Swamp Rabbit Trail, the Croc Center, and new neighborhood schools. And we have big plans for parks, housings, and jobs for our residents. Discover our character, experience our creativity, and feel the warmth of our community. We are Westside, Greenville's new direction. So, what that really does is it gives us the opportunity to position together, first of all, the importance and individuality of all these neighborhoods. We want to be very clear through all of this. There are going to be times when we need to be able to talk about the area as a whole, but then there are also going to be times when we want to show off those neighborhoods as the individual places that they are with the individual character that they have. So being able to bring those all together is something that was very, very important to us. So what we did was we pulled together the message, the colors, the typeface, and we landed on a logo that looks like this. We pulled the same typeface out of the City of Greenville logo. We used the typeface that we selected for the name. And, you know, there's some fun things that we can do in it. One of the things that you all said on Wednesday night, one of the one words you used was unity. So guess what? We did it on purpose. We highlighted W-E, we. This is about we. It's about us. It's about the community that we have. Now, from that, you know, you can't have one and only one thing that sticks, but we wanted to go through and kind of test this out. The box that we put it in has a lean to it. Well, guess what direction it leans? It leans to the west, right? And just to be deliberate, I like to always kind of tell a little bit about the design nerdiness that we use in this. This line of this box that you see, it perfectly mimics the line of the W. So there's a relationship between that west and that W. And then even as it goes, being able to simplify it down so you can start to have these simple icons that represent the place without always having to say it over and over again. Now, why did we use this image of the sun? Well, you know, the thing that's so interesting about the West is typically it's the place that the sun sets. But you guys have changed it all around, and the new day starts here. And we really wanted to capture that warmth and that energy. Now, the thing is, because of the way that the identity is developed, we've got some flexibility to have those images and icons grow and change as we keep going. Now, the next thing I want to show is I want to just kind of show how these exist together. It's a nice thing to understand how everything kind of relates. The city of Greenville has done a phenomenal job implementing their brand identity. They've done such a good job that most members of the city staff are so tired of seeing it that they would love to be able to change it just because they don't have to see it anymore. But the fact is, they have done a great job at creating a consistent personality. And I remember when I was living here, that was the time that the Welcome to the Pendleton Street Arts District signs went up. And I'm sure you've seen those on Pendleton Street. They're the standard Greenville signs, but they welcome you into Pendleton Street. Well, you know, we could talk all day long about whether that was the right name to put on it. And I think obviously now that we've landed on the village of West Greenville, we see probably should have held out a little. But the fact is, I remember the pride when the signs went up, because simply being connected to that was legitimacy. It was the recognition of the importance of the unique identity of that place. So being able to see how those kind of connect together, and I kind of feel like in this overall context, we have this interesting relationship between the character and the way that the character can change as you get smaller and smaller. And the smaller your area goes, the more specific you can get. Now, in addition to that, though, we've talked about West Side as a whole, but we've got to be able to talk about the neighborhoods themselves. Now, I looked and looked and looked, and I couldn't really find very many examples of any pre-existing logos other than the one for the West End community. And the West End community's logo is seen on their sign toppers, and it was developed at the same time that the West End market was developed. Now, funny story, back in 1997, my older brother, who is now my business partner, was working for the city of Greenville. And the West End was a project that he was focusing on. So he called me up one day and he said, Ben, I have got the opportunity of your lifetime. You need to come and open a fresh produce stand in the bottom of the West End market. So I woke up at 5 a.m. every morning, all summer long. I made $12 that summer. Needless to say, I feel like I was on the foundational level of the rebirth of the West End. But, you know, what we want to see here is we want to see the opportunity for each of these neighborhoods to be able to use typeface, maybe use color to connect, but then also be able to adopt their own logos, their own imagery. Now, I pulled some that I felt like were representative of what I heard, very people-centric, very community-centric, very neighbor-centric. The relationship among one another. But I think we've also got this opportunity for those to really grow as the neighborhoods start to take hold of them. Now from that, the other thing that we always have to remember is when you have a brand system in place, it doesn't mean that you have one and only one logo and one and only one message. It means that you now have a system to tell the right story at the right time. So one of the stories that we heard about was this connection with the textile crescent. Being able to take that same typeface. Here you can see we changed the variation of the typeface to the one that's more what some people see as interlocking threads. A connection to that textile heritage, bringing in a very simple crescent image and reinforcing that position statement of being the heart of that textile crescent. Why is that important? We can stitch so many stories to the textile stories. We can stitch together the redevelopment that's going in mills that surround the west side. We can stitch together the business districts that existed to serve those mill villages. We celebrate the villages themselves. Of course, we even have national heroes like Sheila's Joe Jackson who have an origin to the textile heritage, the textile league, and even own businesses in the west side. So being able to have those variations is an essential part of this. Being able to take the identities for the neighborhoods and create variations to celebrate those events. One of the big events that we saw in 2012, correct me if I'm wrong, it was the first annual Southern Side Reunion, is that right? Oh, that was the second one. So, and the funny thing about this was, when I was doing some research about it, I found out about it from a news article in North Carolina that was writing about the Southern Side Reunion. So, again, being able to set this foundation, why is this important? Well, it's important because these events generate what we call positive brand equity. The more that we connect the events to the place, the more positive the perception of the place becomes. And I was talking about this earlier in the week. I was speaking in Maryland, and I told this story about downtown Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, if you know anything about downtown Little Rock, most people, if you ask them about Little Rock, they'd say downtown's pretty bad. Pretty horrible downtown. But then they have a market, a riverfront market that started. And the next thing that you know, the market did great. And they designed a district around the market. And that district of the market grew downtown. But now when you ask people, they'll say, what do you think about downtown Little Rock? Oh, it's horrible. Well, the market district's great. So what they did was they diluted it to the point that there was no spillover. There was no ability. People were having a good experience in just the market, but they didn't figure out a good way to convert that positive experience to raise the positive awareness of the place as a whole. We want Westside to be the place. And the place has a lot of meaning to it. You're the cool place. You're the community place. You're the family place. You're the home place. You're the place that people with values like yours would pick over the alternative that surrounds you. And by packaging that together, you offer an extremely competitive offering to the city itself because you give them yet another facet to be able to sell. And one of the other things that we started to talk about was there was a little bit of talk with being able to do a tour of homes over here. Now, back in my early days of doing design, I did a lot of work with the Home Builders Association. And I used to help market those tours of homes that HBA did. We'd be over in Montebello, and we'd be all over Simpsonville, and these big, houses that all kind of looked a little bit alike when you get right down to it. I love the idea of being able to highlight the housing diversity that exists in the West Side. And I will tell you, in the several years that I've been away from here, I am blown away by what I have seen in terms of houses that have been fixed up and the quality of houses that have gone. And I think that that's a very, very good sign. And I think that we need to use that as a motivation to help drive the overall fuel to have people continue to build pride in their homes and take care of where they live. drive around the west side, one of the things that you notice a much higher than average number of people on foot. And they're on foot not necessarily because they're making a positive lifestyle choice to be healthier. They're on foot because that is their transportation option. And being able to provide families with the opportunity to get their essentials much closer to home is a huge benefit. And one of the things that the city's identified, and I'm really excited about this opportunity, is they've identified that because of the market conditions, the ability that your market has to support a grocery store is actually far better than what a grocery store might see out of their standard analysis. Grocery stores, they have a number, a target of how much leakage they look for, and then a lot of times they'll just do a radius, a mileage radius or a drive-time radius. Well, because of the way that your community and your district sits, people's behaviors are a little bit different. So we think that we can make a really strong case. But, I mean, I would love, this might be out there and Wayne might choke, but like I love the idea of, from the city side, being able to package together, the data to be able to sell this. But I love the idea of also doing a grassroots effort where we do signs that just say, I buy groceries. And put the Westside logo on there and make it available to anybody in the district that wants it. Because, that simple impact, what does that say? That shows unity. Once again, unity of desire. Our friends and our neighbors deserve to be able to shop right here at home. So I'd love to be able to do that. We talked about the tour of homes. These are just some of the houses that I saw yesterday as I drove around on the west side. Really, really cool. Everything from new construction to renovation, revitalization, mixture of single family, doing some really, really cool things with duplex structures that fit appropriately in single family neighborhoods, where the stacked duplexes, really cool stuff. I was very, very impressed. He also wanted to show a couple different signage options here. Now, we talk about the west side, but we want to reinforce the entry points into the neighborhoods as well. We absolutely want people to know when they're in Southern Side, when they're in West Greenville. And the funny thing is, does anybody know where the entry sign to West Greenville is?
It's right there.
It's behind the new location of the Cash and Carry and Chinese restaurant.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's a block off of Pendleton Street, right at the corner of where they put those new houses. Queen. Yeah. So it's Queen and Perry, exactly. So that's where the gateway into West Greenville is. So being able to be very, very strategic about this and being able to identify, and one of the interesting things, and I'll show you, well, actually, I'll hold on. I'll show you a couple more of these. Being able to take some of the design standards that have already been set, and really with this West End logo, the main thing that I did here was I rolled the typeface over into being complementary typeface and brought in neighborhood. Because to me, there's a big difference between calling something a neighborhood and calling it a historic district. Historic districts can sometimes be scary. Neighborhoods are where people live, So being able to make that something that's approachable, and then, West Greenville as well, highlighting the individuality of the communities. There's some really exciting projects going on that involve signage, and not just signage as it orients to the vehicle, but also signage that orients to pedestrian. So this is an example of what a kiosk might look like, and is this one of the kind of excursion? Which one is this?
It would basically
Yeah, so it gives us more of an opportunity to treat the swamp rabbit like a potential economic producer. Because believe it or not, just because you ride a bike doesn't mean they figure out a way to have pockets in the spandex, I think. Because, you know, those folks, they can be economic producers. And then banners. Banners are very, very effective tools at helping communicate to people where they are. Now, I did something really interesting here. I've got 2 slides of banners. The first is the simple introduction of the overall West Side identity. And my main goal here is, the question would be, where would these exist? They should exist on Pendleton Street, connecting from Academy until you reach the Village. Once you hit the Village, it turns into Village. It should be all along Academy. It should be all along Peacock, and it should be all along West Washington. Your major corridors, you're reinforcing this overall sense of place. Now, once you leave that, that's when you get into the individual neighborhood banners. Where do these exist? Well, they exist not only on the roads, but they also exist, this sounds weird, in parking lots. Parking lots have lighting, and parking lots are the place that a person transitions from being vehicular traffic into pedestrian traffic. So this is the place where you help orient them to where they are. Those parking lots might also be the same places that we see kiosks, kind of like T just showed us, giving people additional information about how they can experience the place on foot. And then from there, I just wanted to show you kind of a series of ads, taking these 3 concepts of creativity, character, and community, and just showing how you can tie together some of the different assets from all over the West Side. And I have to tell you, on the bottom here, this is the single most attractive photo that you can take of the Greenville train station. You know, I don't mean to be mean, but if you saw what the old Southern Terminal looked like, and you see what the structure they have now is, it is sad, especially for Southern side. You can only imagine a community whose their origin is the railroad, to remove such a distinct architectural element and replace it with a non-distinct architectural element. We'll put it that way to be nice. But it's still an asset. Over 12,000 riders a year ride through that station. On average, 40 people a day are coming or going out of that station. So it is a strong, strong value, especially for Southern Side. Able to bring faces and connecting faces with places, being able to tell these stories of opportunities, really creating this message of diversity in action. You know, I will tell you, I used to work at the University of South Carolina, and I worked with our publications, and I used to absolutely hate when I had to design admission pieces. Because admission pieces, the photos that you take in admission pieces are artificially diverse. You know, you take pictures of groups of people that never get together. That perfectly manicured Asian man standing right next to the African-American professional-looking woman right next to the white man. You know, it's like, no, that's not what college looks like. You had to work very, very hard to make that picture happen. These are the students that came to see us at City Hall yesterday morning. This is the group. You know, this is the diversity that they exist in and the diversity that they go to school with. So being able to share that, I think, is always fun. Being able to highlight these new investments and these new amenities, A.J. Wittenberg, new housing options, but then just showing off life. I love this shot. I took this right over there on the edge of West End Community. And I'm guessing I didn't stop and talk to the guys because I was driving, and literally I drove past them and had to like turn around and shoot it as I was going. But you know, I'm guessing 2 guys and their daughters, and just really great I mean, it breaks down misconceptions on so many levels, but it's real life. There's nothing about any of this that's staged. Trying to go through and integrate in, this is actually up top, that's the sign from Antioch. And then down below, the inside of Lily down in West Greenville. Got some models in the audience. You know, it is always important to be able to highlight the pioneers. And what are pioneers? Pioneers are, there are pioneers among us. Whether it's business pioneers, whether it's residential pioneers, whether it's the people that have lived here for 3 generations, or the ones that have been inspired by the energy that's here, that are choosing to move in today, invest, risk, to make the place they call home better. We need to be able to put them on a level playing field. We need to be able to show that the thing that they all share is a passion for Westside. And highlighting different types of businesses, different opportunities around the neighborhoods. You know, you always, I tell you, there are a couple things that I'd never walk past the garden club without paying some sort of tribute. If you've ever had a garden club mad at you, you realize what real anger is. The churches in these communities are the heart blood, and you know, I do my best to gather those images as we go around. T took this picture, it's kind of cool. I don't know where was your vantage point?
I was actually on the bridge.
Okay, on P Holland. So, you know, you can see the towers of the textile mills, and then he caught this little red tail taking off. He shot it with a gun. No. You know, public art is, I think a lot of times when we even start about the conversation of public art, it immediately, it's like, oh, you know, art is not for me. Art is for somebody who's got more money than I do. It's for somebody who thinks different than I do. And I made the comment this week, I said, the word art, I feel like, does art a disjustice. Because it does create this mentality of kind of exclusivity, when real art is not exclusive at all. It's unbelievably inclusive. We had a great conversation about public art as it relates to West Greenville. And we talked about, wouldn't it be interesting if we were trying to figure out ways that we could better connect people from academy down into the village? How could we use art? Well, that conversation very quickly went to repurposing heavy textile machinery, putting it out in the public space, having it represent itself in a creative way in the environment that surrounds it. Because art, if art tells the story of the people that live in a place, isn't that effective? If it tells the stories of the technologies that drove economies, that made places prosperous, isn't that a pretty deep meaning? So, you know, being able to do things like that, and then take that same concept, and we talked about over in Southern Side. Wouldn't it be cool if we could create a series of impactful messages that lead you all the way down West Washington, and create a true narrative telling the story of Southern Side? So being able to infuse that, and you know, I use this photo because this was, to be honest with you, this piece of public art, which is out in the parking lot kind of over at Mac's place, is, I will tell you, I mean, like I said, I had a house on Pendleton Road. So my entry point was through the village. When I saw that piece of public art go up, there was something about it that clicked. It's like, it's happening. It's happening. Stuff, like energy is starting to turn over. And it was really exciting to me. Being able to highlight, you know, just the personalities, the creativity that's going on in the community. The life. I was over there, and these guys were working pretty hard on the railroad, so I I know that work on the railroad, work in relation to the railroad, has been an integral part of that. Now, what the workers might have looked like and what they might have done over time has changed, but that relationship between these neighborhoods and the railroad has always been integral. And the tie that the railroad has given to these communities has always been we're in, which I think is a huge sign. I will say though, I want to share this because it was probably one of the more impactful things we heard this week. We're talking about Croc Center. It's a fantastic facility. And the mission of the Croc Center and Croc Centers all over the country has been to invest in a place that brings people together. And one of the saddest things that we heard was people from these neighborhoods who have said, that place is too nice, it's not for us. It is for these neighborhoods. It absolutely is for the neighborhoods. So able to truly convince people that investment in the place is also investment in the people, that's a hard message. And when you have residents of neighborhoods that have gone decades and decades and decades feeling like investment isn't for them, then you can't expect it to automatically click. So we really need to continue to nurture that relationship. I think Quentin and the staff here is doing a great job at making that happen, but really constantly focus on making sure that the neighborhoods own this area. Again, showing off the different churches. And here we've got Mountain View, which for the most part, symbolically, single-handedly turned a place into a new town. And, the whole Newtown area is directly connected to the positive impact that Mountain View had on the area. Again, showing off the people. And just being able to highlight I think one of the most interesting things that I wish we all could ask one another as we continue to meet new people that call the West Side home. It's a great question. What brought you here? And the conversation that will happen after what brought you here, I think will start to reinforce among residents how much they truly have in common and how many values they truly share. So with that, that's what we were able to kind of put together over the last day. And I am right at 1 o'clock, which was our target time to get you out of here. I'd love to open it up for questions, comments, initial thoughts. Yeah.
On the different individual neighborhood brands that you suggested, each one has, they'll have West Greenville neighborhood, or why does Southern Side say neighbors?
They already had a group. They've already got an organization in place called Southern Side Neighborhoods in Action. So when we designed that, it really was for that neighborhood association. That's why. But great question. Yes, ma'am.
A question and a statement. The question, when you talked about the West Side banners going up down Pendleton, where does the village start and where
Great
does that
question.
stop in their
It's all a basis of feeling. To me,
Okay.
the village, I feel like the village starts right where the Flatiron building, or the boxing gym,
Because we've
somewhere
got
right
some
there.
people that are buying further up that are artists just
Right,
along there,
right.
so that's why.
It's a question of feeling, and it's one of those things where once you announce arrival somewhere, that's one of the big problems that cities make a lot of times. Is they'll put these fancy gateway signs at their corporate limits, and then they don't communicate anymore. And a lot of times, what happens in between the corporate limit and the core sometimes isn't the most attractive of what you've got to offer. So being able to know that these signs are actually less about staking your claim on land and more about introducing people to the place. Does that help? I mean,
Yeah.
there's no set place where it would start, and you know, as you enter it, the village, the concept of what the village of West Greenville is, goes outside of what the city limits are. So I think that you need to understand that with the village of West Greenville, you're dealing with an entity that is a consumer-driven entity and needs to have the flexibility to be able to operate in that
That's
full
why I was
area.
wondering, flexibility. And
Yep.
the statement your statement was perfect. I loved it, but it didn't have anything about creativity or artist in it.
Well, and the thing that's nice about this is we can constantly grow and change and add to it. And I mean, that was kind of our first stab.
It looks
Absolutely.
beautiful. I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. that one,
Yeah, that's
that was
right.
missing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you talk about your experience in other locations related to putting the brand on and really and truly influencing the banks?
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, we've had a bank shut down in the last 6 months at the corner of Hamilton Academy.
Right.
You know, going in the wrong direction.
Well, I will tell you, as silly as it might sound, all these national chains, they operate off of growth models. And their growth models say, we need this as an average income, and this is the population. And then when we go in, we're going to build a building, and it's going to be this square footage, and it's going to have this material on the outside. Well, strangely enough, and let's take CVS, for example, because they're a perfect example. CVS was known for picking a key intersection, buying one of your most historic homes, knocking it down, and putting up a building that looks like a helicopter drone. When I think it was an Eckerd, went in down on Wayhampton Boulevard in Greer, they knocked down the old Po Folks restaurant. If you've been around long enough, you remember Po Folks. And they knocked down Po Folks and they built this Eckerd. Now, granted, it's still a drugstore. But when they built it, the city of Greer said, we want it to be brick. It's one of the better drugstores you ever see. Now, you take CVS, I can give you countless experiences and examples of where, because CVS wanted to be in a market, they broke all their own rules. They changed their footprints. They are I mean, we see a CVS right on Main Street. It breaks all their rules. The power of market-driven buzz makes its way into corporate decisions. So by going through and showing that a place is operating as a collective, when they're operating as a mental collective, they're operating as a retail collective. So corporations understand that they're willing to take a risk of breaking down their own model by going into a place that's showing that energy. So you have to leverage that the kind of grassroots wins. You got to leverage the investments from the different individuals that are going in. And you're not going to win every battle. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and tell you today that if you adopt the new logo, it's going to make it easy to get a Whole Foods to come in. No, absolutely not. But being able to stitch together the stories and leverage the momentum that you all are creating, it does go a long way. Because it really is, it's that cool factor. Corporations love to be able to announce that they're putting that building in. Dollar General built it downtown, or the east end of Charleston, West Virginia. They broke all of their rules. They built a brick two-story with these cool metal awnings. They completely changed their product mix to make it almost all food to support the downtown residents. This was before they even launched the Dollar General market model. And, you know, it broke all their rules, and guess what? It's the one that ended up on the cover of their annual report. So what you're doing is you're giving the corporations the opportunity to connect with that momentum, but you've got to connect and cultivate the momentum first. And the combination of working the numbers, and that's one of the things that Wayne was mentioning. show them how to better cluster the actualities of market behavior here, then we also are raising up our own economic story. So it's not as much of a risk that they have to take. Yes, ma'am.
It's like,
Yes, ma'am.
how long is it going to be before we can start seeing this out here?
Great question. Okay, how long is it going to be? First of all, we've got a group, an internal group that's helping us to kind of steer this process. And we are going to take comments from this kind of first step, and we're going to lead those into a phase of refining it. Once we refine it to a product that we think is ready to go, then our job is to package it up and make it ready to get out. Now, I can't tell you how quick it's going to turn into signs, per se. I'm gonna say that Wayne knows that signs are important, right, Wayne? But how quickly are you going to be able to see it in action? I would like to say that I would like to think that we could start to see these things making their way. This does not need to be a long, stretched out process. It is take the concept, get it to a point where it's ready to go, and then start to work.
Excuse me, I have to make a comment. You did a very excellent job in the presentation. Question while you were speaking, how did we get here?
Right.
I am a product of the southern side, Newtown, and I got there from work.
Right.
But my question is, to pose is, what brought me back or what kept me there?
Exactly.
And I was married to a military man that took me away. All up in, so
Right.
I just think this is a wonderful.
Well, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, we're at 1:10. I want to make sure that those of you that are not trying to get out of work all day can get back on the way. Thank you so much. Thanks for your participation in the process. Thanks for giving us time to come out. T and I will be up here afterwards if you got anything you wanted to say. And of course, make sure that you fill out Wayne's comment cards for us so that we can hear your thoughts, and all that stuff will help fuel the refinement. But thanks again for all your help.